There is the smallest spot that will astound you in the center of the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. The most intriguing perspective is in the bubble where vital work is being done. What is this space? And what kind of work is done from here? Please fasten your seatbelt as we take a closer look inside the tiniest space on the dangerous flight deck of an aircraft carrier. Along with catapults, the launcher product also includes catapult control stations and jet blast deflectors. The Navy has been using a team to launch aircraft from carriers for more than 50 years. It is amazing how these ships can launch and land aircraft in such a small area. While sitting in one of the smallest cabins on an aircraft carrier, select officers have a sweet view of all the action as helmet-clad sailors rush about the flight deck using earplugs to muffle the loud noise. The Integrated Catapult Control System, often known as the ICS or bubble, is what this is. This is located on the flight deck of a carrier and connects the active remote stations during each takeoff of an aircraft. Additionally, much work is done here because it has the most spectacular perspective. The fact that these ships can release and land airplanes in such a small space is astonishing. The Integrated Catapult Control System, introduced to the entire U.S. Navy fleet in 1975, is used on modern aircraft carriers. The station, often known as the bubble, provides increased safety and effectiveness during carrier line launches. It acts as the primary control point for the catapult system, which reduces the need for several remote stations and intercommunications during each plane launch. When not in use, the ICS is an enclosure that can be retracted into the deck. It controls the operation of two nearby catapults and houses both the console for the catapult officer and the console for the monitor. The ICS are connected to the remote panels for individual catapults by using sound-activated phones and a system of indicator lights. The station makes carrier launches safer and more efficient. It serves as the central processing unit of the catapult control system, doing away with the need for several discussions and intercommunications during each takeoff of an aircraft. Before launching the sailor in the bubble, the safety inspections, the Navy officer in the bubble has a lot of responsibility because even a tiny mistake or a communication breakdown might result in an accident. Once inside the bubble, he checks the winds, makes sure the pad is clear, and keeps an eye on the board in front of him. Just before departure, he turns to face the pilot. The takeoff will be delayed at night if the pilot moves his head or switches off his light. A sizable portion of the ICS controls is shared between the central charging panel under the deck and the ICS on the deck. The monitor control console and the catapult officer control console are located in the ICS, which manage the operation of two nearby catapults. In typical catapult operations, the shooter controls the device from inside the ICS while receiving guidance from the ICS operator. The shooter controls how quickly the team launch valves on the catapult open and will be informed by the ICS operator when the personnel below deck are observing the personnel on the top side. Before firing and launching the aircraft, the shooter will make sure the launch environment is secure. The ICS functions can be shifted to the emergency deck edge control panel or the central charging pan channel, and the catapult officer can manage deck operations. The catapult officer control console, the monitor control console, and the central charging panel manage the catapult functions. Separate control screens for each of the two catapults that the console controls are placed on the side of the console that is closest to the commanded catapult. The controls console has a wraparound design for user comfort. Switching is staged for the launch of the nose gear. The control panels have array switches, readouts for the manual airplane data input system, and a console to show the capacitor selector valve's position. With the aid of these components, the operator may manage the catapult during a typical launch cycle. Asian remote stations, a feature of the Nimitz-class carriers, control the catapults on older carriers. Therefore, it is not necessary to launch a catapult from the bubble. Therefore, even if an aircraft is not launched from the bubble, these far-off stations nevertheless contribute to the operation. Every 20 seconds or so, a catapult can launch a plane from an aircraft carrier. Under the deck of each catapult is a massive piston around 300 feet long. A tiny device, hardly larger than the deck, engages the nose gear of the airplane. The catapults used to launch the flight are lined with two rows of slotted cylindrical pipes. Aerial handlers will lead the aircraft onto the catapult and launch it with the aircraft's nose gear as soon as the plates are ready to be removed from the flight decks. To dredge the airplane down the catapult, each aircraft's nose gear is equipped with a T-bar. The aircraft's nose gear has a bar connecting two pistons in the through, and the shuttle that extends from it is attached to the bar by a linkage. The holdback system, attached to the nose gear and supplied tension, maintains the aircraft under control. The last of several tests are completed, and the pilot turns all of the aircraft's engines to full power. Following the deployment of the catapult, the airplane accelerates from 0 to 160 knots in less than 2 seconds. A signal from the flight deck-based catapult causes the camera airport to deploy once the engines have reached their maximum power. It depends on the aircraft's weight, the wind speed over the deck, and how long the valves are left open. Following the release of the holdback, the shuttle's pistons power the aircraft along the 300-foot deck. A 60,000-pound jet can reach speeds of more than 150 miles per hour in less than 2 seconds. Only Nimitz-class aircraft carriers have a bubble that can be retracted onto the flight deck. On the carrier's starboard side, the first and second catapults are located between the first and second bubbles, while on the carrier's opposite side, the fourth catapult is located to the left of the second bubble. The need to keep the catapults in operational condition during warfare may arise. Under these conditions, it is necessary to keep the water brake pumps running with the pistons in the battery position and the aircraft positioned on the catapults. Everyone on staff needs to stay put at their assigned positions, so they're ready to launch at a moment's notice. The following procedures are applicable when the IX is used as the principal method of managing fixed-wing aircraft launching operations. The air officer watches the wind repeater as the ship gets closer to the launch course and informs the launching officers of the relative wind speed. After receiving approval from the bridge to launch an aircraft, a last check is required to ensure that the relative wind is within the parameters outlined in the relevant launching advisory. This is done before turning the spinning beacons from red to green, turning on the Pride Fly Go light on the catapult officer's IX console, and authorizing the launching officers to start. Before the launching officers take charge of the aircraft, the following procedures must be followed. Before starting the aircraft engine, the hookup petty officer does the following. Steps 1 and 2 involve ensuring that the proper jet blast deflectors are erected and the holdback is attached to the aircraft. The director is given the tension indication in Step 4 after Step 3 has checked the catapult area ahead. Following are the duties of the catapult director. The first step is to inspect the area in front of the catapult, and the second is to confirm that all personnel are free of the jet plus and prop wash, and that the proper jet blast deflectors are raised. In Step 3, the pilot is instructed to release the brakes, while the launching officer in the IX is instructed to take tension. The pilot then uses power following the instructions in Nero's manual for that particular aircraft type. After the aircraft is tensioned on the catapult, the fourth phase instructs the pilot to raise the aircraft launch bar if necessary. The fifth step is to turn the aircraft over to the signal lights on the IX deck. Suppose the hookup petty officer director or squadron aircraft inspector doubts the suitability of the helicopter's aircraft configuration. In that case, they must send the key to the catapult safety server by sending a cross-arm suspense signal during the day or a horizontal movement at night. The launching officer in the IX receives a suspense signal from the catapult safety observer. But how large is the airspace surrounding an aircraft carrier for defense? Could a swarm of drones approach close enough to interfere with operations during a flight? It's unlikely that the Aegis weapon management system will shield aircraft carriers and strike groups. The ships that make up the strike-throw are equipped with Aegis components deployed and coordinated. This device has a range of up to 100 nautical miles and can detect, track, and counter several threats. If there is a ship within that range, you can probably bet that it has a battle information center on board. Whether it's a Chinese ship or a little fishing boat, the aircraft carrier is aware of everything. Suppose for a moment that the ship is at sea when the drone swarm strikes. Furthermore, it would be necessary to believe it was launched from a mothership within a 100-mile range, more likely inside a 10-mile or smaller range. Therefore, the strike force is already keeping an eye on that mothership. How do you feel about this attribute? That concludes today's video. If you found it entertaining, please give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. Share your ideas in the comments section below. Till then, bye everyone.